Was not paying attention. Was not paying attention. I mean, I was paying attention, but I didn't know they were coming by this soon. All right. Take this out. I've got it paused. I was working on other stuff. Totally unprepared. Entire screen. Let me move my 1 million tabs that I'm working on. Share audio system. Okay. Let me know if you can hear this because I was having audio issues earlier on. They came back early, yes.
You solemnly swear the demonstrate the court and jury in the case now hearing to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. I just thank you. Let me take this with me.
So not prepared. That was way quicker.
All right, Mr. Lally, whenever you're ready.
Oh, they're supposed to go to lunch and everything.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name?
Greg Woodbury, Woodbury.
And what do you do for work?
Lieutenant paramedic on the Canton Fire Department.
And how long have you been a member of the Canton Fire Department?
About 24 years now.
How long have you had the rank of lieutenant within the Canton Fire Department?
That's been 8 years now.
Now, prior to working with Canton Fire Department, what, if any, other work did you have within that same sort of field?
Prior to being on Canton Fire, I was an EMT paramedic in the North Shore area.
And if you could just, with regard to your working as a paramedic and a firefighter, specifically as far as being a paramedic, what, if any, sort of specialized training did you receive in regard to, or certifications did you receive in regard to being a paramedic?
So after I got my EMT, when I went to paramedic school, I went to Northeastern University. It was a 1-year full-time program.
And following, you successfully completed that program, is that correct?
Yes.
And is there any sort of continuing educational component or recertification component in regard to your paramedic certification?
Yeah, every 2 years, paramedics have to recertify. We're required to get so many hours of continuing education to recertify every 2 years.
If I could turn your attention to the date of January 28th, 2022 into January 29th, 2022. Were you working with the Canton Fire Department on that day?
Yes.
And what kind of shift were you working on that occasion, if you recall?
It was a 24-hour shift.
And 24-hour shift within the Canton Fire Department is what to what?
It's 8 a.m. to 8 a.m. the next day.
Now, turning your attention to the 29th, at what point do you sort of get up and start to begin your day at the fire station?
So a normal day, sorry, was that my beginning of the shift you're talking about, or the end of the shift? Okay, so the second part of the shift. Normally we get up at 6 for the officers, but I got up a little earlier then because we had the snowstorm coming in. So I had to make sure everything was shoveled. I think I got up about maybe 5, check the apron of the area in front of the station, and make sure the walkways were clear.
And when you got up to check that, what, if anything, did you?
It had been snowing. There was blizzard-type conditions coming in. So it was a decent level of snowfall there. Let me see, maybe 2-3 inches on the ground at that time.
And as far as with reference to that, what, if anything, did you do to?
I think we can move quickly through this part of it.
Yeah.
The cleaning the apron. Okay.
As far as that particular date or that shift, how were you assigned within the firehouse?
I was lieutenant on Engine 4.
And with respect to that, at some point shortly after 6 a.m., did you receive a dispatch to a call?
Yes, yeah, we're dispatched to a call for a person in the snow.
And did you respond to that call, sir?
Yes, I did.
And you were assigned to the engine, is that correct?
Correct.
Who, if anyone else, was assigned to the engine that day with you on that shift?
So we had Cade McLaughlin and Frank Walsh were my 2 engine crew.
And in addition to yourself and your engine, what if
Yep.
any other sort of vehicles or apparatuses responded?
Ambulance 1 also responded with us. So that was Tony Flamati, Matt Kelly, and Tim Nuttall had also hopped on the ambulance. He was coming in for the shift in the morning, came in early to beat the storm.
And do you recall where the call was in regard to what the address was?
I don't remember the address offhand, but it was not that far away in the district.
And when you arrived in the engine, when you first arrived on scene, as you were arriving on scene, what, if anything, did you sort of see as upon your arrival?
So the police were already there. We were approaching the scene. I could see several people off to the side in the yard doing something, so we went to investigate that.
When you say off to the side, was that to your left, to your right, or something?
So the way I was approaching the street, it was on the left-hand side.
And when you indicate you see some group of people, is that correct?
Yeah, there was a few people around. I don't remember exactly how many or what they were doing.
And when you start to make your way over there, what, if any, when you arrive on scene,
Yep.
what is sort of the first thing that you do?
So we went to evaluate the patient. I believe someone had started CPR prior to us getting there, so we went to continue that.
When you say someone had started CPR prior to you,
I don't remember the particular individual that was doing it as we arrived.
my only question, sir, so it's someone outside of your department, correct?
Yeah,
And do you know if it was one of the police officers or someone else?
I don't remember.
Now, obviously, you're dispatched in response to an unresponsive mail, correct?
Yes.
And at the time that you're arriving on scene, you say you see sort of a cluster of people. Were you able to see that unresponsive mail at that point?
Not in the vehicle, not until I exited the vehicle.
And at some point, much later or subsequently, did you come to learn the identity of the unresponsive mail or the patient that you were involved in?
Afterwards, they told me yes. At the time, I did not know.
And what did you learn his name to be subsequently?
I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous and blanking right now.
Was it Mr. John O'Keefe?
Yes, correct.
And when you first came over to where Mr. O'Keefe was on the ground, is that correct?
Yes, he was.
What kind of position was his body in when you first observed him?
He was lying supine on the ground, like on his back. He was
Thank you,
parallel
Ian.
to the street, about 8 feet away from the snowbank.
And in reference to that, as far as the snow was concerned, what if any snow did you observe on or around where he was?
He was covered with snow, and there was snow around the area.
And so from a treatment of Mr. O'Keefe as a patient,
Yep.
what is sort of the first thing that you did or
We started CPR, or CCR, sorry, immediately. Someone went to go get a board to get him onto that so we can get him onto the stretcher and move him to the ambulance. And then someone else is trying to get the backstory, trying to figure out the scenario that we're dealing with.
if I could just stop you for a moment. So
Yep.
you mentioned CCR, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So what is the difference between CCR versus CPR?
CPR is cardiopulmonary resuscitation, so that is when you're helping someone breathe. CCR is when we first get to a scene. They changed the protocols a little while ago, so we don't have to give respirations right away. We can just do compressions. It's a little more effective to get the blood flowing quickly.
Thank you. As far as your involvement in patient care, sort of what
Yeah.
was that during that initial phase where Mr. O'Keefe is supine on the ground? What was your involvement in patient care at that point?
I was assisting with the CPR, making sure everyone else was doing their task. As lieutenant, I kind of got to manage the other people and make sure everyone's on target for what they're supposed to be doing.
And during that initial time that you're outside in the area where Mr. O'Keefe is on the ground, what, if any, observations did you make as far as injuries to Mr. O'Keefe at that time?
Outside on the ground, he was covered in snow, so we're really not doing any sort of secondary survey initially.
So most of them say that he's
primary
not covered
concern
in
is
snow.
the primary survey, which is airway, breathing, circulation. He was not breathing. He had no pulse, so our primary concern is to get that going.
Everybody else has said he was not covered in snow.
And at some point, are you able to get him from the ground to the back of the ambulance?
Yeah, we moved him onto a longboard, then moved him from the longboard onto the stretcher, and brought the stretcher over the ambulance and loaded him in there.
Thank you,
You
Nikki.
mentioned at some point upon your sort of initial arrival at the patient that different people were tasked with different things. Right?
Yes.
And someone was tasked with trying to get sort of what you termed a backstory. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Why,
Yeah.
why is that important?
So when you have someone unconscious, unresponsive, you want to know when they were last well, the last breathing, last seen, trying to figure out why someone is on the ground. There are different reasons of why they could be there, trying to figure that out. Normally people don't lay down in the snow, so trying to evaluate the reason the person was unconscious.
And so you're able to get him on, Mr. O'Keefe, onto a stretcher into the back of the ambulance, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And fair to say that the lighting in the back of the ambulance is better than it was outside?
correct.
And when you're in the back of the ambulance, are you able to then do or participate in that secondary survey? You were talking about?
Yeah, we started doing a secondary survey after we started getting good compressions going. Someone was working on the intubation, and then one of the procedures is to strip off the clothes and evaluate the person.
And if you recall, how were the clothes removed?
I don't recall exactly which method they used. Typically, we cut them off, but I'm not sure if they did that or they just pulled them off.
And what, if anything, do you recall as to Mr. O'Keefe's clothing and sort of what he was wearing when he was found?
I really wasn't paying attention to it. The primary concern is trying to revive him.
So to that
you,
secondary
Candace.
survey, as far as once you're in the back of the ambulance, what, if anything, did you observe as far as injuries on Mr. O'Keefe at that?
He had a hematoma or a bruising. The right eye was very prominent. There was some scratches on the right forearm. Was most of the external injuries we noted.
And now, in addition, so as far as people on scene, there were a number of different firefighters from your
Yes.
department. And you mentioned that the police were on scene when you arrived. Is that correct?
Correct.
So beyond the police and fire, what, if any, other individuals did you observe at some point when you were on scene?
There was some other civilians there. I really wasn't paying attention to them.
Now, with reference to that backstory that you were talking about, at any point in time, either outside of the ambulance or inside of the ambulance, who, if anyone, was tasked by you or anyone else to try and obtain that backstory?
I think Katie McLaughlin was the one that obtained the backstory.
And if you know, was there any other conversation that you were present for between any of your other firefighters and any of those civilians?
That was primarily when she relayed to us the information that she had obtained. We were trying to figure out the scenario of why he was found unconscious, unresponsive.
Thank you,
Let me ask you
Rowan.
this way. So as far as arrival at the patient when he's on the ground,
Yep.
who gets there first? You and the other individuals in the engine or the firefighters in the ambulance?
We both respond from the same station at the same time. The engine's in the front, the ambulance usually in the rear. So I believe we pulled over, the ambulance pulled over at the same time as us. I believe C5 went as well, which is the captain. He was also responding with us.
Now, as far as the person that Firefighter McLaughlin spoke to, what, if anything, did you know about that person at that time?
At that time, I knew nothing. I knew there was someone that had been with him. She relayed the information of what she had heard to us.
And the information that Firefighter McLaughlin, without reference to what it was, but the information that Firefighter McLaughlin was able to obtain, did she communicate that to you and the other firefighters in the ambulance?
Yes. Yeah, she came in the ambulance, told us what she had heard.
Which is what?
As far as the information that Firefighter McLaughlin provided, did that comport with what you were observing as far as injuries to Mr. O'Keefe?
Objection.
Sustained. You can lay a foundation if.
She helps him.
Now, as far as again, the injuries that you observed to Mr. O'Keefe in the back of the ambulance were what?
It was the bruising of the right eye and the scratches on the forearm.
And what, if anything, did firefighter McLaughlin indicate to you had been told to her?
That someone said she had hit him, and he was last seen.
Objection. Move to strike.
Sustained. That will be stricken.
May we approach him?
Okay.
I'm behind by, oops, by just a little bit because I paused it when I started. I was sitting here working on other stuff, and then all of a sudden it came back, and I was like, ah! So then I had to hurry up and go live. Sorry. Oh, I became the cougher. This is Lieutenant Greg Woodbury. He's one who some of the others have testified about him. He's one of the ones that came, I think, in the fire truck. Yeah, that'll be all over X. Yeah. People love to clip stuff. Do you think the family is realized? I don't know. I don't think so. Because I think, you know, it's going to be, I don't know. I don't want to speak for the family. I think, you know.
We always try and check and make sure that your lunch is here before we take a break. I'm told that it is. So we will take a lunch break. We'll see everybody here ready to start right at 2 o'clock.
All right, so we just came back for 15 minutes so that they could take an hour break.
Exactly.
All right, well, fun times. All right, let's look for a second. I was so unprepared. I thought I had so much more time, and I was like sitting here working away. All right, let's see here. All right, here's some of the pictures. There's the car. They've got the whole taillight removed now, of course. Oh, it said pay attention to the middle console. What about the middle console? What is the middle console? I don't know how to zoom. Well, even zooming, it doesn't make the picture any bigger. That sucks. I don't know what we're looking for on the middle console. Debbie Long, get to membership. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Goodness, I was so unprepared. Okay, we've got an hour. Rather than stopping and starting a new stream and all of that, I'm going to put my little BRB thing up. I've got a couple things that I'm going to try to finish working on so that way I can focus when they come back. It's hard to see what that is, but it looks like... What the heck is it? I'll try to figure it out. Glove compartment radio, airbag 2, I think gone. There's something sitting right there and I can't tell what it is. And I've had so little sleep, my eyes are not focusing. So I'll see if I can figure that out. All right, I'm going to put on my little BRB thing so I can finish up what I'm working on now that I know they're done early. And then I'll come back in just a minute, but I'll leave chat open because there's no point in starting a third stream for the day. There's supposed to be a wallet thing stuck between the driver's side and console. A wallet thing stuck between the driver's side and the console. Interesting. I know, I feel like we're playing I Spy. Hide and seek. All right, y'all. I will see y'all in just a minute. Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Oh, we are coming back. I looked at the middle console too. There's somebody in the hall and Lucy's not happy about it. And I can't, I don't know. I can't tell. I'm so tired. So my eyes are not focusing. All right, wake up. We're almost done. Almost done. Almost done. Yeah, I shared the video, one of the videos on Twitter. There's a couple videos. Of the view. Okay, wake up, wake up. There's one on Court TV. There's one on Long Crime. There's a couple of them on Twitter. Oh. Here's, hold on, let me pull. Here's the one I posted on Twitter. See, this is all taken out. But okay, here's my question. Here's what I need to know. If she hit him hard enough to do that damage, look how much this bumper sticks out. So how is there no damage right here? Like, see, look at this side. Okay. See how much this sticks out? So how is there no damage right here if she hit him? That's what I don't get. Oh, I'm tired. I forgot I was playing the video, not showing a picture. And here's I see refresh my recollection, just sent me this. It's a cross-country photo with Caitlin Albert and Katie McLaughlin. So I guess they ran, I used to run cross country too. I guess they ran cross country together in school as well. Thank you for sending me that. Well, well. Just random acquaintances that go to the beach together. That's all. Just random beach acquaintances. No biggie. Nothing to see here. Oh, yeah, I see what you mean about the flat part of Fairview. And yeah, and Mermaid Mary sent some pictures and videos too. I think she said I can share them. Let me see. What is this? Bro. I'm on the struggle bus right now. Mildred, thank you, thank you, thank you. Would her legs not be? You know what? I feel like his legs would have his legs, his abdomen. Like I feel like some of that would have damage. I just that's the hardest part for me in all of this. Because I had like because I'm trying to look at all angles and I looked at it like, okay, well, maybe she hit him on accident and they were trying to stack the evidence against her to make it like, easy or whatever. They're about to come back now. But just none of this stuff makes sense. That's what's so it's the
Declare them dead or
sorry.
passed on until they've been warmed up. A lot of times with hypothermic patients.
Sorry, I forgot I muted my screen earlier so that y'all wouldn't hear me working. I can rewind it. I'm on the struggle bus, y'all.
You
My bad.
testified that you don't recall sort of specifically anything as far as clothing from Mr. O'Keefe, is that correct?
I was not paying attention to the clothing.
And so to that point, what were you paying attention to at that?
Primarily the big issue was doing the CCR then to CPR. We're trying to resuscitate the person as best we can. We know with the hypothermic patient, it's very difficult. It's a longer treatment protocol than a typical cardiac arrest. because we have to do the CPR for an extended period of time. We have to get the patient warmed up. So the clothing is just quickly removed versus examined or looked at. And the focus was on getting compressions done. Someone was trying to intubate, getting a line started. So that's what we're mainly focused on.
As far as treatment is concerned, what, if any, sort of interplay or intersection is there between a cardiac arrest and a hypothermic patient?
When someone's hypothermic and in a cardiac arrest, we can't declare them dead or passed on until they've been warmed up. A lot of times with hypothermic patients, they can appear to be dead when they're still actually alive. So there has been instances where people have woken up in morgues that were hypothermic when their body warmed up a little bit. So we have to be very cautious, very careful about, treating them as much as we can, as careful as we can. We can't shake them too much, can't move them too much. So it's getting the blood circulating and then starting ventilating after a few minutes.
Back to
Okay, I'm sorry, but waking up in a morgue is terrifying.
the CCR, the chest compressions
Yep.
that we're talking about. What, if any, sort of, based on your training and experience, what, if any, sort of protocols are? Well, let me ask you this. Were you doing chest compressions throughout the entirety of this interaction with the patient?
No, chest compressions, most people do it for about 2 minutes. After 2 minutes, it's very tiring to do chest compressions, so we swap off every few minutes. So a different person will come in and do the compressions. They'll do it for a little while, go into a different task. Someone else will come in and do compressions.
Is that sort of the protocol that you followed in this instance? With
Yes.
regard to the stroke?
Yes, we were rotating her person doing compressions.
And the ambulance at some point leaves the scene and goes to a hospital, is that correct?
Correct.
And do you know what hospital, Mr.
Good Samaritan Medical Center.
If you could just wait till
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
the question is.
Yeah. Good Samaritan Medical Center.
And did you go along for that ambulance ride?
No, I did not.
And where did you go?
So as the lieutenant on the engine, I stay with the engine. I detailed my 2 other engine personnel to the ambulance. So they went with the 2 engine personnel, the 2 regular people on the ambulance, as well as an additional person. Timmy Nuttall was the extra person for that one.
And so you take the engine and go with it.
I went back to the station.
And at some point shortly after that, are you called back to the roadway of Fairview Road?
Yes.
And same general area of Fairview Road?
Yes, same address.
And how is it that you get from the station back to Fairview?
So we had struck a box to cover the personnel that we had detailed. That means we send out a page looking for additional people to come in. We had Sam Pock come in. So he was my engine driver, and I was in the lieutenant's seat. We responded back in engine 4.
And the ambulance that had been there on Fairview Road with you previously was at Good Samaritan?
Yes.
Correct?
Yeah, a call like that takes an extended period of time, even at the hospital, to assist them there. So we had to get an ambulance from Station 2.
And if you know, who was on that ambulance from Station 2?
That was Jason Becker and Dan Whitley.
Now, with reference to this particular call, what, if anything, was this secondary dispatch with regard to?
So this call was for Section 12, which is someone in having a psychological issue.
And do you know who that Section 12 was in regard to?
Yeah, this was for Karen Reed.
And at some point, you go back to the scene along with the engine and the second ambulance from Station 2?
Yeah, so the engine got there first. The ambulance coming from the other station, so it was a couple extra minutes before they got there.
And when you arrived, who, if anyone else, is sort of on scene on Fairview Road at that point?
The police were still on scene. They had never left. So initially it was me, Sam Pock, and the police. So I went up to try to get the backstory of why we're doing a Section 12 and what was going on.
And at some point, well, when you first arrived, without regard to what was said to you, but who, if anyone, do you speak with to sort of try to gain this information or backstory?
When I got onto the scene, I talked to the police that was there.
Who'd you talk to, sir? The police officer who was
Police
there?
officer, yes. Sorry.
And do you recall specifically who that police officer was?
I really did not pay attention to the individual officer.
And at some point, do you have a conversation, or what, if any, conversation do you have with the patient in this case, the defendant, Ms. Reed?
So it was when we identified Karen Reed as the patient, the ambulance arrived shortly after. We started talking to her and trying to get her into the ambulance to talk to her further.
And just to be clear for the records, when you say Miss Reed, do you see her in the courtroom today?
Yes, she's right over there.
Does the record reflect identification of the defendant by the witness?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, with respect to the defendant, Miss Reed, where is she sort of when you first make contact with her on scene when you come back?
In the general vicinity of where the police cars are.
And what is sort of the purpose of this initial conversation that you're having with
He says sort of so much.
For Section 12, that's when someone's made threats to them, harm themselves or others. So I just had to judge her mental ability at the time, and if she was a threat to us, and how much of a threat she was to herself. So just a quick evaluation, see how her behavior was.
And what, if any, observations did you make of her during your quick conversation?
She appeared very distraught, very upset. Initially just trying to explain the situation to her about going to the hospital with the Section 12, and she was resistant to that.
And so when you say she was resistant to that, what if anything, did she say or do to?
She did not want to go.
Hold on. You cannot talk over each other. The objection's overruled.
Yeah. Okay.
Please go ahead, sir.
So what was the question again, please? Yeah.
So what, if anything, when you say she was resistant, what, if anything, did she communicate to you, or observations did you make in regard to that?
She did not want to go to the hospital, and she didn't think she needed any assistance.
And what, if anything, are you sort of, you mentioned you were explaining sort of the process to her, what, if anything, are you saying in that explanation?
Well, once a Section 12 gets written, it's written by the police. Once it's written, we are required to transport to the hospital. Section 12 means that they believe you're a threat to yourself or others, so you have to get evaluated at the hospital by the hospital staff there to see how mentally stable you are.
Now, at this time of this conversation, what, if anything, did you know as far as the relationship between Ms. Reed and the prior patient, Mr. O'Keefe?
I knew they had a relationship. I wasn't sure if they were married or engaged or what their status was, but I knew she was did have a strong relationship with him.
And in reference to Mr. O'Keefe, during your conversation with Ms. Reed, what, if anything, was she asking or saying in reference to Mr. O'Keefe?
She kept repeating, "Is he dead? Is he dead?" She seemed very concerned about that. We're trying to explain to her that we cannot declare him dead. He's being evaluated. He's being treated. They're trying to treat him the best they can.
Okay, that's what
And as
everybody
far
says
as,
that she was
When
saying.
she's stating these things to you, is this, as far as the sort of tonality of her voice while she's saying these things to you, can you describe that?
She was very up and down. It was a repetitive conversation with her. She's obviously experiencing a lot of different emotions. So just her emotional state was all over the place.
And as far as this sort of second time that you're on scene, about how long period of time are we talking about?
That was about between 15 and 20 minutes.
And as far as your conversation with Ms. Reed, where did she go? Did you stay with her sort of the entire time that she was on scene that second time? Or?
Because she was resistant, we were trying to get her to voluntarily go. If someone voluntarily goes, even with the section written, they're released a lot quicker. So we're trying to convince her to go, be willing to go with us versus being forced. If at some point we have to actually force her to go against her will, then it's going to be a much longer hospital stay. So our main goal with staying on the scene so long was to try to get her willingly to go. Just makes her experience much better.
And just to be clear, when you say we, who specifically are you referring to?
It was me, Dan Whitley, Jason Becker were the ones talking to her in the back of the ambulance.
When you clear, so when you leave the scene, where is Ms. Reed at that point?
So the ambulance transported her to the Good Samaritan. We also detailed Sam Park as the driver.
So the gentleman who had driven, or the firefighter that had driven you in the engine to the scene that
Yep.
drives the ambulance away.
Yes, correct.
Could you say his name again, please?
Sam Park.
Sam what?
Sam Park.
Spell it, please, the last name?
P-O-C-H is the last name.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, sir.
Marie Moss is keeping up with the what, if anything.
Ready?
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Woodbury, you and I have never met or spoken, correct?
No.
I know you had said you were nervous, so I'm going to try and make
Okay.
this fairly brief,
Thank you.
sir. I just have a couple of areas that I'd like to go
Okay.
through with. So to your interaction with Karen Reed and what you actually heard from her mouth.
Okay.
That's sort of where I want to concentrate, as opposed to anything that anybody else may have said to you about what they believe she might have said, okay?
Okay.
And it seems to me that your main interaction with her was not when the initial call came in to respond to, a man who was unresponsive in the snow. It was after you went back to the station in the engine and then came back to the scene for the purposes of the Section 12 that you described. Would that be fair to say?
Correct.
And when you came back to the scene for the Section 12, it's also fair to say that the Section 12 issue was your focus, correct?
Correct.
You had an order in hand, correct?
The police had it and they gave it to us when we got there.
Right. Okay. So you got an order in hand once you got there.
Correct.
Which is what you expected to happen, correct?
Yes.
And your focus at that point is, okay, and I don't want to be too, flip, but we can do this the easy way or the hard way. Is that a fair characterization?
That is one way to put it.
And you wanted to do it the easy way.
Yes, correct.
And you wanted to persuade Karen Reed that she should want to do it the easy way, correct?
Yes.
And after some conversation back and forth where she was initially resistant, she eventually agreed, yes, I'll do, not to put words in your mouth or hers, but to the effect of, yes, we'll do this the easy way, correct?
Did get her to agree to transport.
All right. And with regard to her state of mind, I believe you had testified that she appeared to be very distraught,
Yes, correct.
going through a lot of emotions,
Yes.
grief-stricken,
Oh, that's one of them, yes.
hysterical at times,
Yes.
raising her voice at times,
Yes.
crying at times.
I didn't see any actual tears, but
That
yeah,
type,
type of emotional display.
All right. And so in terms of the only commentary that you heard with regard to her feelings or questions regarding John O'Keefe, it was the statements that you heard repetitively over and over and over again. Is he dead? Is he dead? Is he dead? Is he dead?
That was some of the things she was saying, yes.
And Your Honor, may we approach sidebar briefly?
Okay?
Sidebar. Sidebar. And we're live. We caught up from where I muted you. So the is he dead? Is he dead? Is the most consistent thing that everybody heard her saying in all of the original statements before everything got proctored, as what people are calling it. That's what everybody said she said.
So
There's that
I
sigh.
Lieutenant Woodbury,
I think, Ms. Giannetti, I think you need the actual,
yes. I was going to ask a couple of questions first and then grab it.
but it's right there for when you need it.
Lieutenant Woodbury, on your direct examination, you testified a bit, and I don't want to block a jury here, I'm sorry. You testified a bit about the injuries that you observed on John O'Keefe when you first arrived at the scene, correct?
Yes.
You testified about the swollen eye,
Yes.
and you also testified about the scratch marks that you saw on his forearm, correct?
Correct.
He called him scratch
I'd like
marks
to
again.
show you, I'm going to approach in a minute, to show you what has been marked M for identification. And when I hand it to you, please keep it to yourself and look at it. and then look up at me when you're done, okay? Having reviewed M for identification, do you recognize what that depicts?
Yes.
What does it depict?
That is Mr. O'Keefe's right arm.
All right. Does that photograph appear to be a fair and accurate representation of the scratch marks that you observed on January 29th of 2022, sir?
Yes.
I would offer that, Your Honor.
Okay. That will be our next exhibit, and again, we'll have to maybe renumber. Counsel, before you leave today, we have to figure out how to keep everything straight.
Understood.
282
And with the court's permission, Your Honor, may I have that published on the screen for the jury?
Yes.
Yeah, he's calling them scratch marks. Remember the other
Now,
EMT,
on
Nuttall.
direct
Told him
examination,
that too.
Lieutenant, hang on. Let me just have a moment.
Oh,
Good point. I'm going to try to get out of your way so everybody can see. With regard to the injuries that you described on direct examination, Lieutenant, I believe you would mainly concentrate.
I'm sorry, I need to.
Please take this down for me. I need to see counsel inside.
now what? From what I read, it wasn't bruising. It was something they called, I can't remember. There was one of the reports that talks about, it's like red because of the cold, but I can't remember how they described it or what they called it. But see, I can't understand how a car could do that. I think unless they have, and I thought that they would allude to that a little bit in the openings, but he said something about he has scratch marks on his right arm where he was holding the cocktail glass. I hate that for his family. Yeah, I kept thinking at some point there was going to be some kind of explanation that would make the car stuff make sense. Liver mortis. Wouldn't they have DNA tissue from the car from those injuries? See, that's my thing is that like they said that they had DNA on the taillight, but not like not blood or anything. No blood, no tissue, nothing like that. Fan is back. Bev is definitely a micromanager. She wants complete control, make sure everything is how she wants it. Coroner has not testified yet. We've only made it through his brother and his sister-in-law, which, proof of life witnesses, sometimes will start, but this is more like, I think, have them testify so that they can be in there for the rest of it. But also, it's good to humanize the victim to the jury right away. But since then, we've had nothing but first responders. Going down the list of all the first responders that were there. You can see how tiny that courtroom is right there. Like that rail at the bottom is the jury box. I mean, that's a tiny, tiny courtroom. The fancy blue tape. Covering them. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the tape is for. I'm not sure who they put right there. If that's for bailiffs or to keep them away from, I don't know. Pure speculation on my part. I have no idea. No clue. That would be so awkward. To be sitting right there with them that close to you, facing you. Erica said, I think it's because so they're not close to the jury. I thought about that. Like to keep a little bit of distance between them. Yeah, Joe Scott Morgan called them abrasions, which scratches can be abrasions. Like different things can cause an abrasion. But who was it that was explaining that? On some panel recently. I don't know. My 2 hours of sleep have caught up to me. I can't remember. But that EMT from Nuttall, whatever day he was, 2 or 3 or whatever, he called them scratches, and Yanetti's called them scratches, and this witness, Woodbury. Furrows. The furrows. You need an RA drink. Yeah, I am. I'm just out of energy. I stayed up really late working on all this. But it's organized. For those who didn't see what I was doing, I showed it this morning. I have a thing to keep up with the trial because it's going to be a long trial, and I have to keep up with who's on what day, remember who they are, what they said, what they look like, and I have notes on who all. I'm taking notes as we go. It's the only way I can keep up. Will that be on the website? I can put it on the website. I will probably finish it tomorrow, and then I can put it on the website and then just keep it updated. Bonnie Castillo has, oh, I can't even talk. Said, could it be that the dog scratched his arm? My son's bloodhound scratched me and it scarred. Yeah, that's the theory that the defense is presenting, I think. So.
This court is in session. Please be seated.
Farrows.
So jurors, I can assure you that by Monday, I mean, we're in really good shape. It's an organizational situation that I have to deal with. So we've been dealing with that. We appreciate your patience, and we are in good shape. And Ms. Dianetti, if you need the exhibit, it's here.
Terrific. May I have it published again on the camera?
Yes.
Now, Lieutenant, with regard to the injuries that you observed, did you notice any lividity on the body when you were looking at John O'Keefe?
Being hypothermic, he was very pale overall, so the skin wasn't pinked up yet, so it's hard to really judge the rest of the skin that way until it's warmed up and much later into the scene.
You are familiar with the term
Yep.
lividity, though?
Yes.
Could you just explain that to the jury?
That's like bruising.
Bruising.
So the pooling of blood in lower sections. So for like a cardiac arrest patient, when they have lividity, it looks like bruising on the underside where all the blood has pooled. And we did not really notice that.
But it's not actually bruising from an injury, it's just the blood being
Settling down. It's the same thing, yes.
That's
One
what
at
we
a
were
time,
talking about.
please.
Yeah, sorry. So it appears like bruising, and bruising is basically pooling of blood under the skin. So lividity is just gravity-fed pooling of blood under the skin. And it usually happens what is the section of the body that is lowest.
I see. Okay. Now, with regard to the scratches that you've testified about and that you now observe on Exhibit 382, I believe, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe your testimony on direct examination was that you observed them in the forearm area, correct?
It was the right, like forearm to arm. I was trying to signal like right up here, but yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I guess that's not.
Yeah.
It wasn't just on the
Not just, it was the arm area. You know, mostly what I noticed was forearm, but there was some around there.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it wasn't just below the
It
elbow?
wasn't up just below the elbow.
There was some above the
Yes.
elbow as well?
Yep,
That's consistent with Exhibit 382?
correct.
I just have a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
He keeps answering
No
before
further
they're done.
questions.
Bless him.
Jalali, anything further?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Lieutenant, thank you very much. So you're all
thank
set.
He's like, good, get me out of here.
Our next witness, Mr. Lally.
Yes, Your Honor. The Commonwealth would call Mr. Daniel Whitley to the stand.
Daniel Whitley. Oh, Danny. Come on, Danny.
Watch your step. Clerk, and raise your right hand, please. You solemnly swear the evidence given to the court and jury in the case now and here and should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Lally.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the jury?
Daniel Whitley, Whitley.
And what do you do for work, sir?
I'm a paramedic firefighter with the Town of Canton Fire Department.
And how long have you been a member of the Canton Fire Department?
I was hired in March of '06.
And prior to that work with the Canton Fire Department, did you work within that same field in any other capacity for any other company?
Yes, correct. I worked for American Medical Response out of Brockton as an EMT intermediate and a paramedic for 5 years.
And you're a certified paramedic, is that correct?
Correct.
And how long have you held that certification?
It was, I believe, November of 2006 that I got that certification.
And is there any sort of continuing educational component or recertification process
Sorry.
that's involved with being a certified paramedic?
Yes, we recertify every 2 years. We're required to hold basic life support card, which is just generally CPR, and advanced cardiac life support, which is ACLS. It's more dealing with EKGs and how to run resuscitations, cardiac arrests, things of that nature.
Now, sir, if I could turn your attention to January 28th into January 29th of 2022, were you working with the Canton Fire Department on those dates?
Yes,
What kind of shift were you working on that?
24-hour shift, 8 a.m. to 8 a.m.
And where were you assigned on that particular date?
The Ponkbog Station, Station 2.
The Ponkabog Station, where is that located within Canton?
The north side of town on Sassamon Street.
And how were you assigned? Were you assigned to a specific duty or a specific...
Yes, I was assigned to Ambulance 2 with Jason Becker. As I was a field training officer at that point, and he was just finishing up his field training after he recently became certified as a paramedic.
And now, at some point shortly after 6 a.m., were you aware of a call or dispatch in regard to Station House 1?
Yes, we had just returned from a previous call about 5 a.m. and heard the tones go off. Actually, we were in the day room, which is where basically it's the living room of a fire station. And we heard the tones go off, we heard the police going to Fairview Road. And we just kind of sat and were wondering what was going on there.
Now, you yourself, you and firefighter Becker, were you dispatched to a call as well, approximately 6:41 or 6:42 a.m.?
Yes.
And at the time that you received that dispatch, what, if anything, were you aware of with regard to the prior call that the other ambulance went?
So when the tones go off between the two stations, we're able to hear what the dispatch complaint is, what they're going for, and it came in as, I believe, CPR in progress in the snow or something to that regard. So we knew that was a fairly serious call that Station 1 had gone to.
Now, when you received your dispatch at approximately 6:42 a.m. or so, what was that call in regard to, and where did you respond?
We were dispatched for a Section 12.
And as far as your assignments within the ambulance between yourself and firefighter Becker, with regard to this call, who was doing what?
I was driving. He's what we call the tech, the lead paramedic on the case. That's just generally how we operate.
And from your response, or your driving from Station 2 to Fairview Road, what, if anything, did you observe or experience en route in between the two?
At that point, it was snowing pretty heavily. We were coming down Chapman Street, getting ready to take the right onto Fairview. We nearly slid off the road, making the turn onto Fairview. It was snowing that heavily, and I don't believe the roads had been really plowed or treated or anything like that for us to, so it was pretty slippery.
Now, in addition to ambulance number 2 that you and firefighter Becker were in, what, if any, other sort of vehicles or apparatus was dispatched to this call as well?
There was engine 3, which is the District 1 engine, and at least 2 police cruisers. And then another gray SUV kind of further down from where we parked.
Now, when you arrive in this area on Fairview Road, what if anything do you sort of observe as far as who's there when you arrive?
When I got out, my Lieutenant Woodbury and Sam Park were there.
And they were on the engine, is that correct?
They were on the engine, correct?
Now, beyond sort of the personnel from your departments, you mentioned that there were some police officers there as well?
Yes, Mulaney and Sarif, and then two other females, at least two other females.
And the other two females, where were they when you first sort of get out of the ambulance?
A few yards ahead of us, a few dozen yards ahead of us, I'd say.
And were there any other vehicles beyond sort of first responders that you observed on?
Just that other gray SUV.
And so I guess my question is, where were the two females that you observed in relation to the gray SUV?
Near it, maybe in front of, maybe one was inside. There were three females there.
And at some point while you're on scene, you learned the identity of your patient, correct?
Yes,
And what was the name of the patient?
Karen Reed.
And you had some conversation with Karen Reed that day, is that correct?
Yes,
And do you see Karen Reed in the courtroom?
I do.
Could you just describe as to where she's seated or an article of clothing that she's wearing?
She's seated right at that table right there.
I'm sorry, if you could just point as to where she is.
Right here?
No, I just asked record reflect identification.
Okay?
Now, when you first sort of arrive on scene, who, if anyone, is the first person that you talk to?
Lieutenant Woodbury and Sam Park.
And following that conversation, who, if anyone, you speak to?
Probably briefly Lieutenant Mulaney, but more, not Lieutenant, Officer Mulaney and Officer Sarif.
Now, following your conversation, let me ask you this sort of in general terms. When you respond to a call for a Section 12, what is sort of the protocol that you go through in regard to that?
Whether it's a Section 12 or any call, basically, the lead tech generally takes over immediate patient care, goes over, assesses. Usually the partner will go over and try and find out background details, try and find, not only, well, especially for a Section 12, you want to get, the tech will get, which is Jason's role, the patient story, and then I'll get everyone else's story.
And at some point, you have a conversation with Ms. Reed as well.
Oh, yes.
And where is that in relation to vehicles on scene? So what is that initial conversation?
The initial conversation, she was very upset. She kept saying, so we had a Section 12 written, and that was to take her to the hospital because she made threats against her life, saying, I don't want to live anymore if my husband dies. I don't want to be alive anymore. And myself and Jason and Lieutenant Woodbury were kind of like, well, that's seemingly more in the lines of normal grieving process after something traumatic happens to a loved one, whether they're going to die or not. We kind of didn't feel like it kind of led to that level of a Section 12 to have her transported to the hospital. So at that point, I exited the ambulance and I went to speak with Officer Sarif, and I said, this kind of doesn't, if we want her to be at the hospital, get a full eval, we're going to need more than just, if my husband dies, I want to die, because that seems just like normal grieving things to say. And so I went back to the ambulance. He went, I don't know where he went. I don't know whether it was Cruiser or what, but he came back, notified me that her...
Sustained.
And from that conversation, did you receive more information or more clarity as to statements that Ms. Reed had made?
Yes, Officer Sarif had said that...
Objection.
So not what he said, sir. So
We
You
were
are
informed
unmuted.
that,
Objection.
I'm not sure.
So you can't testify to what somebody else told you. You can when there's no objection regarding what Ms. Reed told you.
Okay.
But you can't testify what anybody else told you.
Okay.
So when I say sustain, that means you have to stop. And,
Okay.
And the lawyer will ask another question.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, Firefighter Whitley, at some point, specific to your conversations with the defendant, Ms. You described sort of her demeanor and any observations you made in relation to that as you were speaking with her.
Yes, she was very upset. She kept asking if there was any chance. She kept asking us if we knew if the person ambulance 1 had transported was alive or dead, and we could not speak to that. She asked if somebody could be alive in the snow without a jacket for many hours. And at that point, we were just trying to give her any hope that whomever A1 transported was still alive. And we kind of just talked about far off hypothermia cases where, kids have fallen in rivers and been submerged for many minutes, maybe even hours, and survived with no neurological deficits. So we were just trying to give her some sort of hope on the way to the hospital that there was a chance that her husband could be alive.
Now, at this point, what, if anything, did you know about sort of the relationship between your patient, the defendant, Ms. Reed, and the patient from ambulance 1 that had been transported previously?
She identified him as her husband
And is that something that she said once or more than once?
many, many times.
Now, she asked you some questions about his status and made specific reference to his clothing. Is that correct?
The only thing I recall is asking if he could have survived without a jacket.
How long to die in the
As
cold?
far as these conversations that you had with Ms. Reed, where did they occur in relation to the ambulance?
They were in the back of the ambulance.
And who, if anyone, was present in the back of the ambulance beyond yourself and the defendant?
Jason Becker.
And with reference to, you mentioned that firefighter Becker was sort of the lead paramedic or the lead tech on this, is that correct?
Yes.
So is there, from sort of his role and your role, what are some of the sort of differences in the duties and responsibilities in relation, we'll call it?
So for any Section 12, our department policy is there will be 2 EMTs, paramedics, firefighters with during transport at all times. That's both for our safety and the patient safety. So that's why it wasn't just 2 EMTs or paramedics driving to the hospital. I was in back with Jason, and Sam Park was driving.
Now, as far as you testified earlier about observations of her being upset or distraught, is that correct?
Correct.
Was that consistent throughout your interaction with her, or?
No. There would be episodes where she would go from crying in her hands to all of a sudden perking up. She was crying about having to take care of kids, saying she couldn't do it. And I was saying, you can do this. It's not as hard as it seems. She kept saying, I can't take care of these kids. They're not my kids, and they're not his kids. That's when I figured out who ambulance 1 transported. And I was saying, well, it seems like you have a good, strong support system. People who came and helped you in a blizzard to help come find your husband. She said, she asked me if I knew Carrie Roberts. I said I did. She said anybody who knows Carrie Roberts wouldn't say those things. And that kind of took me aback a bit. It seemed strange to say something like that after you were just crying because your husband was dead.
Take you back just within.
I was just kind of surprised.
If I could take you back within that just for a minute. So you had testified that during that, her description, you sort of realized who was a patient in ambulance 1, is that correct?
Yes.
And what, if anything, made you realize, or who did you think it was?
I live in and grew up in the Ponquag neighborhood of Canton, and Mr. O'Keefe was known for taking on his niece and nephew after, I'm sorry, I'm not sure positive of the relationship, but I believe it was his sister and his brother-in-law passed away. And it was something people admired him for, people looked up to him for. But I was able to, I also, I moved into the Ponquag neighborhood back after living outside of Canton for a few years. The O'Keefes lived diagonally across from me. I never had any sort of interaction with him or anything. When I moved in, my wife was probably about 6 months pregnant, and I had 2 toddlers, so I was pretty busy. I figured he was pretty busy. I never even had a chance to introduce myself or anything before he moved to Meadows, which is how I kind of figured out.
Your Honor, I object to this line of questioning.
Okay, next, sustain. Next question.
Now, you had also.
You let that go longer than I would have.
Mentioned during your conversation with the defendant that she had said some things about Carrie Roberts, correct?
Correct.
And how is it that you know Carrie Roberts?
Well, Carrie lives around the corner from me.
Objection.
No, I'll allow that. Next question, please.
How long have you known Carrie Roberts?
Just from moving back into the neighborhood, she would run the neighborhood block party, and she put out that she would like the fire truck there on the neighborhood Facebook page. So I volunteered to bring the fire truck to the neighborhood block party.
And was Ms. Roberts seen on Fairview when you arrived in your ambulance?
Yes,
So she was one of the other females along with the defendant.
correct.
Now, with reference to when you brought up as far as support system, and included Ms. Roberts within that, what, if anything, did the defendant say about Ms. Roberts?
Objection.
Sustain. Next question, please.
What is happening right now?
Now, this conversation that you had with the defendant in the ambulance, about how long a period of time are we talking about?
20, 25 minutes.
And beyond what you've already testified to, what did sort of that conversation consist of, or what was the sort of tone and tenor of that conversation?
Again, we were just trying to give her any support. She was, once we were getting closer to the hospital, we
Objection.
So the tone and tenor. So what can you tell us about that? That's admissible, Mr. Yannetti. Go ahead.
the tone, she would go from being almost despondent to when she asked me if I knew Carrie Roberts, the only tone I can use to describe it is snarky.
Objection. Move to strike.
I'll strike that.
So this guy don't like Karen.
Now, you transported to a Good Samaritan, is that correct?
Correct.
And when you,
Ugh.
during the transport, where are you in relation to Ms. Reed from Fairview to Good Samaritan?
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
During the transport, Ms. Reed is where within the ambulance?
I believe we have what we call a tech bench, which is a long bench. There's the ambulance stretcher, and then to next to the ambulance stretcher is we call it the CPR seat, and then that's where Miss Reed sat, and then I was in what we call the airway seat, which is basically like a captain's chair behind the stretcher.
And in addition to yourself and the defendant, who, if anyone, else was sort of in the back of the ambulance at that time?
During transport?
Yes.
During transport, it was just me, Jason Becker, and Miss Reed.
Okay. So yourself, along with firefighter Becker, in the back, right?
Correct.
Who was driving the ambulance?
Sam Park.
Now, when you arrived at Good Samaritan, what, if anything, happened?
Miss Reed was asking to be able to see John, and I made the decision that I would run ahead to see if that was in the realm of possibility with the emergency room physician there. So I ran ahead. I came into they call it the code room at Good Sam, and I asked if the wife could see the husband. The ER doctor asked if she would be upset. I said if she would be upset if she was allowed to or not. And I said she's going to be upset. I believe she's going to be upset either way. He was asking if she would get in the way of the resuscitation efforts, and I said it's possible. She's very upset.
And so, once you arrive at the hospital with the patient, where do you go along with Ms. Reed?
We escorted her down to we call it the psych hall or the behavioral hall at Good Sam.
And about how long was it after you escorted her into the hospital that you stayed with her following that?
At least 10 minutes.
And during those 10 minutes, how would you describe sort of her behavior or demeanor during that time?
Objection.
No, he can testify to that.
He was giving the nurses a hard time about, I'm sorry, she was giving the nurses a hard time about having to get into a Johnny, about having to submit a urine sample. Even the AR text went to the physician who was in the code room to see if she could not have to wear a Johnny, and the ER doc said no, if she's in the psych hall, she's a psych patient, needs to be in a Johnny. So at that point, there was just a nurse and a tech. We don't usually leave a psych patient with just a single nurse and a tech, so we decided to wait until security had gotten there before we left.
May I have one moment?
Yes.
So if you're on the jury, what are you thinking right now? Every single person has said that she was like distressed and all that. He's the
Nothing
only
further
one
at
that
this time,
said.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Yannetti.
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
He's the only one that said that she would swap over to Perky. Nobody has said that. That's interesting.
So, Mr. Whitley, when you showed up, you learned that Karen Reed was the patient that you were to deal with, correct?
Correct.
And it was your expectation that she would be going to the hospital, correct?
Correct.
One of the things that you do when you transport somebody to the hospital is you try to get a medical history, correct?
Yep.
Why is that important?
Generally, we get pertinent medical history to pass on to the hospital. So if something were to happen where the patient wasn't able to describe their past medical history, it gets passed on to the next caregiver, which would be the nurses, doctors at the hospital.
Okay. More information is always better than less information, correct?
I would say so.
And with regard to Ms. Reed, did you take a medical history from her?
I assume Jason did.
Okay. Did you learn the results of that medical history?
You'd have to refer to Jason's report.
I may have a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
Mr. Whitley, if I I'm actually going to show you two documents with your permission. One would be Jason's report.
Okay.
And you were talking about Jason Becker, correct?
Correct.
The other is a police report from Sergeant Yuri Buchnick. I'm going to give you the second page of that.
So let's do them one at a time.
Sure. And you've asked for Jason Becker's report, so I'll give you that first, okay?
Okay.
And when I approach you, I'm going to hand this to you, and I just ask you to look at it silently by yourself.
Okay.
And then look up at me when you're done.
Okay.
I can't believe you called her snarky. I'm gonna need you to read a little faster. I didn't come here to read.
I'm going to collect that from you if you don't mind.
The first report was the NFIRS report from my lieutenant.
Was Jason Becker's report included in
Yes.
as well?
Yep.
Having reviewed those documents, does that refresh your memory as to the medical history that was taken?
Yes.
And what can you tell us about that?
Just lists multiple sclerosis.
What is multiple sclerosis?
I believe it's a neurodegenerative disease where the myelin sheathing of the trying to think of the word here, but
I don't mean to put you on the spot.
you know, I understand.
I'm sure you do. It's a disease.
It's a disease that's progressive and has
Thank you, Anna.
neurological muscle control things involved with it,
And when you say progressive, that means it gets worse over time as you age?
as I understand it.
And that was the medical history you got from Karen Lee?
Correct.
I have nothing further.
All right. So, sir, you are all set. Thank you, Mr. Whitley. Your next witness, Mr. Lally?
Yes, Your Honor, we'll call Mr. Jason Becker to the stand.
Jason Becker. This is the other one that was in there. Thank you, Anna, for the super chat. Thank you, thank you. It seems like he went up there and gossiped. Karen has MS.
Please watch your step. Sure. You get there, please face that clerk and raise your right hand.
Do you solemnly swear the honesty of the court and jury in the case now hearing should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do.
Oh, I need to take my screenshot.
Okay, whenever you're ready, Mr. Lally.
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the jury?
First name is Jason. Last name is Becker. Becker.
And what do you do
Oops.
for, sir?
Sorry.
I'm a firefighter paramedic, Canton Fire Department.
And how long have you been a member of the Canton Fire Department?
5.5 years.
Yes.
And prior
love
to
that
that, what, if
accent.
any, other employment did you have sort of within that same field?
I worked at Found Ambulance and South Shore Hospital.
How long did you work at each of those respective positions?
Found Ambulance was about 5 years. South Shore Hospital, approximately 3 years.
And with regard to South Shore Hospital, what is it that you did there?
I was a nursing assistant in the emergency room.
And with regard to your work as a firefighter paramedic for the Canton Fire Department, you were a certified paramedic?
Yes.
And when did you first receive that certification?
October 2021.
And is that something that you receive, or when you receive that, is something that goes on in perpetuity, or is that something that you have a continuing educational component or recertification?
Con Ed education, every 2 years you have to recertify.
Hold on, I have to take my screenshot. It's going to
Now, sir,
get
if I
dark for a
could
second.
turn your attention to January 28th, 2022 into January 29th, 2022. Were you working on that occasion?
I was.
And where were you assigned, I'm sorry, what type of shift were you working on that occasion?
What type of shift?
Yes, like what hour to what hour?
8 a.m. to 8 a.m., 24 hours.
So 8 a.m. on the 28th until 8 a.m. on the 29th.
Correct.
And where were you assigned on that day?
I was at Canton Station 2, Ambulance 2.
And who, if anyone else, was assigned with you to Ambulance 2 at Station 2 on that day?
Daniel Whitley, firefighter Daniel Whitley.
Now, at some point when you were working on the 29th, shortly after 6 a.m. or so, did you become aware of a call for station house number 1?
Yes.
And what, if anything, were you aware of as far as that earlier call?
As far as we know, it was a man down the road, initial, and I believe it was upgraded eventually to CPR in progress.
Now, at some
What
point
is happening
following
to the
that,
feed?
approximately 6:41 a.m. or so, did you, your station, dispatch to Fairview Road?
Yes.
What is happening to the feed?
A psych eval, possible section 12.
And in addition to yourself and firefighter Whitley in ambulance 2, what, if any, other sort of vehicles were dispatched by your department to that call as well?
Canton Engine 3.
And if you know, who, if anyone, was on Canton Engine 3 at that time?
Lieutenant Greg Woodbury, firefighter Sam Park.
Now, with regard to the ambulance that you were in with firefighter Whitley, what were sort of, let me ask you this, between sort of call volume, what, if any, sort of policy or protocol is there as far as who does what on a particular call?
We switch off.
And so on this particular call that you were dispatched to Fairview Road, what were sort of each of your respective duties and responsibilities between yourself and firefighter Whitley?
Firefighter Whitley was the driver at that point, and it was my tech, is what it's called. So the next patient would be mine.
And so as sort of you were the lead tech on this, is that correct?
Correct.
And so as far as the lead tech's role, what, if any, duties or responsibilities do you have in regard to writing a report?
It's my report. That'd be right.
May I approach you, witness?
Yes.
No.
The document just asked you to review that with help.
The first report up here is the engines. Second one would be mine.
You recognize the first few pages of that as the engines report, and the last few are yours, correct?
Correct.
And that's your report with relation to this dispatch and this call, correct?
Correct.
Can I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
I want the seat to introduce in a minute, isn't it?
So both reports through this witness? Is there any objection?
May I just take a look at the DA's copy? May we approach?
Okay.
I don't like it when they approach. I want to know what's going on. It's BS. Oh, that's smart. So look. I don't know what happened. I've said that over and over. I don't know what happened. I know that there are too many things that are weird for me to have any kind of faith in what they've done. I know that the injuries versus the damage to the car still don't make sense to me. I know that I have a lot of questions, but I also know that he got up there and he does not like some Karen Reed. Oh, there's that sign.
Bless you.
She is annoyed. Perk up, Bev. It's Friday.
With that addendum, I would seek to introduce and admit that as the next exhibit.
Okay.
And Your Honor, with the court's permission, can I return the report to the witness? for
Yes.
Testimony. Now, sir, when you first sort of arrive in the area of 34, when you arrive in the area of Fairview Road, what, if anything, is it that you first observe upon your arrival?
Coming down the street or on scene?
Yes, coming up.
Coming down the street, see the light police lights. You can see the fire engine, and I believe I said it's one black SUV.
And where is it that you and the ambulance sort of park in reference to those other vehicles that you see?
I believe we parked. If the SUV was facing towards us, we parked to the left. I don't recall where the police cruiser was, though.
And when you first arrive there, who, if anyone, is it that you first speak with when you get there?
When we got out of the ambulance, I passed Officer Saraf and Officer Mulaney. They kind of briefed us, and then I walked over to the black SUV.
And when you walk over to the black SUV, who is it that you observe in that black SUV?
I saw two females.
And of those two females, do you see one of them in the courtroom today?
I do.
Could you just identify as to where she's seated or an article of clothing that she's wearing?
Right over there, the jacket on.
That's the record reflect identification of the defendant by the court.
Okay.
Now, with respect to the defendant, Ms. Reed, where within the vehicle is she when you first come up to the vehicle and observe?
From what I remember, she was in the front passenger seat.
And what, if any, knowledge did you have as far as the defendant, Ms. Reed, and her relationship to the earlier call that ambulance one had been dispatched with?
Very little. I think we had gotten briefed that she was the wife of the previous patient.
And was that something that she had stated or something that somebody else had stated? Where does that awareness come
I
from?
believe it was one of the Canton police officers that said it.
I'm sorry, what was that answer?
It was one of the Canton police officers.
Okay.
So he's saying Canton PD said it.
And so when you walk up to the car, what is it that you say to her, or what, if any, conversation did you have with Ms. Reed at that point?
So I went up to the window and introduced myself and just kind of asked what was going on.
And how did she respond to that?
She was kind of, she was distraught. She was crying. She kind of told us that the statements she may have made, she didn't mean it because of the current events that she had just gone through.
What, if anything, did she say about that? If anything, did she say about what she had gone through?
She had just done CPR on her husband.
And so she referred to him as her husband as well?
Yes.
And this conversation that you had,
So they both
sort
heard
of the side of the SUV, is that through the door, through the window?
From what I recall, it was through the window.
And at some point, does the conversation move to the ambulance?
Correct.
About how long was the conversation at the vehicle before the conversation shifted to the end?
5 to 10 minutes.
And as far as your dispatch for a psych or a section 12, correct?
Correct.
Can you explain to the jury sort of that process, just in general terms first, as far as what does that process entail?
And when we get on scene
Yes.
for a section,
Yes, please.
we go on scene, we kind of look at the environment, see what the environment's like, see if the patient's cooperative, uncooperative, what their demeanor is, if there's any obvious self-harm. If there's none, we kind of go up and talk to them, get a report, and ask them some basic triage questions.
And is that sort of the policy or the protocol or what you followed in this instance with Ms. Reed?
Correct.
Now, beyond what she had indicated to you initially, what, if anything, was she asking you during the course of your conversation with her once you were in the ambulance?
She kept asking if he was dead or could he be dead.
Is that something that she said once or more than once or something?
More than once.
And could you describe sort of the tone of her voice when she was saying?
It was kind of like it was a rapid kind of pressure speech. She was just a lot repetitive.
And as you were speaking with her, what, if any, observations did you make of her facial area?
She had blood on her face and her neck and her blood around her mouth, her neck and chin.
So with regard to sort of any earlier suicidal statements, what, if anything, did she say in relation to that?
She said she made him because she just went through a traumatic event, seeing her husband dead, and she had no plan on acting on it.
Now, pursuant to a Section 12 call, what, if anything, are you doing as far as documentation goes with respect to vital signs, things like that?
Well, it depends on the situation. In a situation with misreads, I took a regular just vital signs, pulse oximetry to see her heart rate. But for someone like a female psych patient, it's more verbal.
And as far as any of those sort of vital signs and things that you took, what, if anything, abnormal did you note in regard to that?
There was nothing too abnormal. Just the heart rate might have been a little bit high, but within normal range.
Could you please keep your voice up, sir? Thank you.
Sorry. With the vital signs, her heart rate was a little high. It was 98, but it was nothing concerning.
During the time that you're having this conversation with her in the back of the ambulance, how would you describe it as well?
She would have periods of calmness, and then other periods she would appear agitated because she didn't want to go to the hospital. But all in all, she was cooperative with us.
Now, at some point,
Real quick, he said she would have periods of calmness. Whitley was like, oh yeah, she would be distraught and then she'd just perk right up.
she's cooperative, correct, and agrees to go?
Eventually, yes.
When you say eventually, was there some conversation related to that?
We kind of mentioned to her basically what a Section 12 is. And unfortunately, she'd have to come with us voluntarily or involuntarily.
So you're explaining the process to her, is that correct?
Correct.
Eventually, she agrees to go, correct?
Correct.
And as far as the transport goes, who, if anyone, is in the back of the ambulance with her during the transport period?
Me and firefighter Whitley.
And who, if anyone, was driving the ambulance to the hospital?
Firefighter Park.
And which hospital did you transport Ms. Reed to?
We went to the Good Samaritan Hospital.
Now, during the course of transfer to the hospital, what, if anything else, did Ms. Reed say with reference to children?
She was talking about Keith's children, and she was unsure, and she didn't know if she'd be able to take care of them. She was worried about that.
She was worried about that.
Yeah, she's worried about who would take care of the children if he was pronounced dead.
And what, if anything, did she say about herself in reference to the children?
She didn't think that she could take care of them on her own.
Now, as far as this other person or the patient from the earlier call, how did she to that person in relationship to yourself?
She was calling him the husband.
Now, with reference to this particular, with reference to Ms. Reed in this conversation, what, if anything, did she say in regards to the last time that she had spoken to who she called her husband?
She had said that they had gotten into an argument. She was sad because that was the last thing she had said to him, was the argument, but she didn't go into detail on what the argument was about or what was said.
Now, with regard to her speaking about the children, what, if any, further conversation did either yourself or firefighter Whitley have with her in regard to that?
With children?
Yes.
I don't recall.
The other female party that Ms. Reed was initially with in the vehicle when you first arrived, did you know who that was?
I don't know who she was.
And at any point in time, subsequent to that, did you learn who she was?
I did.
And who did you learn her to be?
She was Miss Carrie Roberts.
And with relation to your conversation with Ms. Reed on that day of January 29th, what, if anything, did she say about Ms. Roberts?
Objection.
Sustained.
The regard to the sort of medical questions that you were asked, from those medical questions, what, if any, questions would you typically ask someone with relation to consumption of alcohol or drugs?
Well, probably part of the psych assessment, I asked if she had taken any drugs or alcohol, and she had denied it at that point.
She said that she had not, correct?
Correct.
The observations that you testified to earlier in regard to her, and by her I mean Ms. Reed's demeanor, did that change at all during the course of your interaction with her, or was that consistent throughout?
Demeanor as in...
It's a poorly phrased question. I'm going to try and rephrase it.
He already answered this question,
With regard
too.
to her demeanor, throughout the course of your interaction with her, how would you describe that?
She was cooperative. Then she'd be calm, and then eventually she would kind of get a little agitated and repetitive questions.
He already said all that.
But she seemed distraught.
Now, with respect to
Asked and answered.
The person she indicated was her husband, what, if any, questions did she ask either you or firefighter Whitley or both in relation to him?
She was asking if he was dead, or could he be dead, could be dead, and she said, could I have hit him?
Could I have hit him?
Was that something that she asked once or more than once?
It wasn't a lot. It was more of, could he be dead, could he be dead?
So somewhat repetitive, is that correct?
Correct.
Just one moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
It's, I'm glad that this guy testified too, because they just described two conversations very differently.
Firefighter Becker, just for my own clarification. You had testified earlier that first arriving on scene and first spoke with Ms. Reed, she indicated that there were some statements that she said there were some statements that she did not meet, correct?
Correct. Suicidal statements.
And so, exactly. So my question is, that was in reference to the suicidal statements she had made prior to your arrival, correct?
Correct.
Not to any subsequent statements, correct?
Correct.
Nothing further.
All right, cross-examination.
Thank you, Rona. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
You and I have never met, right?
I don't believe so.
I wanted to go back to one piece of testimony that you offered on direct examination, if I may.
Sure.
You had, in response to a question from the prosecutor about the medical history and your question to Ms. Reed about whether she had had any alcohol to drink. I believe your answer today was she denied having drank alcohol the night before?
At the time that she was, she could have, I don't know if she drank alcohol the night before, but at that time I asked if she had any drugs or alcohol, and she said no.
I'm sorry, if I just didn't hear.
Yeah,
the
you
answer.
need to keep your voice up, sir, or speak
Okay.
directly into
Sorry.
the microphone.
So I asked her if she had any drugs or alcohol, and she said no.
Oh, if she had any drugs.
Well,
or
if she
alcohol.
taken any drugs or alcohol, she said no.
Did you specify a time period?
I just assumed it'd be in the last few hours for the reason why we were there.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Unsure if she had alcohol days prior, but for the reason why we were there.
Okay. So, was it your understanding that the two of you had an understanding of what you were asking?
Sure.
Objection, move to
Yeah, yeah. So the objection sustained. It's stricken. Ask the question differently, Ms. Giannetti.
Thank you, Your Honor. All right, so I guess with regard to your intent and your state of mind when you were asking that question, you were asking, had you taken any drugs or alcohol within the last few hours? That's what you meant to ask?
Objection.
So the objection sustained.
What did you specifically ask?
So when I ask a patient if any drugs or alcohol, I'm talking about at that point in time, but an hour before, 2 hours before, not days before, weeks before.
Okay,
So-
and this was at 6:40 in the morning,
Correct.
correct? Did you smell any alcohol on her at that time?
I did not.
Okay. You would agree that she did tell you at some point that she had had alcohol the night before, correct?
No.
All right. So this is now, what's today, May 3rd of 2024?
Correct.
And this happened back in January, on January 29th of 2022?
Correct.
You were interviewed by a Trooper Michael Proctor on February 14th of 2022. Do you recall that?
I recall meeting with him, yes.
And February 14th of 2022 would have been a little bit more than 2 weeks after January 29th of 2022, correct?
Correct.
Your memory of what Karen Reed told you about whether she had anything to drink the night before would have been much better on February 14th of 2022 when you were talking to Trooper Michael Proctor than it would be today, correct?
Correct.
Because your memory doesn't get better over time, correct?
Certain circumstances, sure.
And with regard to whether Karen had indicated that she took any drugs, you told Trooper Proctor she said that she had not, correct?
Correct.
With regard to whether she had had alcohol the night before, you told Trooper Proctor on February 14th of 2022 that she did consume alcohol last night, correct?
Objection, Your Honor.
All right, I'm going to see a sidebar on this. Please bring that with you, please.
What's the objection for that? I want to know. I hate them not saying what it is. It's so ridiculous. This is so stupid. It's stupid. I'm mad. I'm about to. Somebody get Bev on the phone. Obviously, his statements right away are going to be more, accurate as far as memory goes.
With your permission, I'll repeat the question.
Sure.
You told Trooper Proctor on February 14th of 2022 that Karen had told you that she did consume alcohol the previous night, correct?
If that's in his notes,
Well, is your memory exhausted as to whether you told him that?
I don't recall.
If you saw his report with your statements in it, would that refresh your memory?
Sure.
It's a two-page report. I'll give you both, actually. It's a two-page report. I'll give you both pages, but I have highlighted a line on the second page, so I would direct you to that. May I approach?
Yes. And take your time reading it, sir.
Yes, yeah. And please read it silently to yourself and look up at me when you're done.
I love how he says, look up at me when you're done. Like, read this, and then let's make awkward eye contact, and then we'll talk. So he described the whole conversation with the kids as her saying she didn't know if she'd be able to take care of them, and she was worried about that. She didn't think she could do it on her own. That's how he described it. His buddy over there that obviously doesn't like her said that Karen kept saying that she can't take care of the kids. They're not my kids. They're not his kids. Obviously, we know that one of the fights that they had was about her spoiling them, so...
So I did say.
So, Mr. Becker, a couple of things. Wait for a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But also,
Sorry.
you have to keep your voice up.
Okay.
I'm close to you and I'm having trouble hearing you. Most
Okay.
of the jurors are further away.
Exactly,
The
Marie
way this works
Moss.
is I have to collect that from you and then ask you a question, okay?
So,
If I may approach you on?
Yes.
Having reviewed that document, does that refresh your memory as to whether or not Karen Reed, or strike that? Having reviewed that report, does that refresh your memory as to the fact that you...
Does that refresh your memory?
Does that refresh your memory?
it does.
Okay. And so did you tell Trooper Proctor on February 14th that Karen Reed had told you on January 29th that she had consumed alcohol the night before that?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. Is it fair to say that when you were listening to her talk at times, that her speech was very rapid?
Correct.
And particularly when she had said the words, is he dead, is he dead, she would repeat it repetitively, correct?
Correct.
And she was fixated on that, correct?
Correct.
And with regard to the last interaction that she spoke about with whom you thought she said her husband, she didn't give you any detail about that, correct?
She did not.
You don't know whether it was an in-person communication?
That wasn't my position to ask more details about that.
And I'm not criticizing you, sir. I'm just trying to get to what your knowledge was in terms of
Right.
information you got from her. So she didn't specify that it was an in-person communication, correct?
No,
She didn't specify as to whether it was a phone conversation?
she did not.
She didn't specify whether it was a text message exchange back and forth?
She did not.
And she didn't specify whether it was an angry voicemail that she left, correct?
She did not.
Good point, Yannetti.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Just one moment, Your Honor.
Okay.
No. Ricky Watson gifted 5 memberships. Thank you so much, Ricky Watson. Thank you, thank you.
I have nothing further for this witness, Your Honor.
right. All right, Mr. Becker or Firefighter Becker, you are all set, sir. Thank you very much.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Thank you.
Aw. Bless him.
Yes, you can leave that right where it is. Thank you, sir.
He's like, sorry. He thinks that he's in trouble with the judge. 'Cause she's a little harsh.
Your next witness, Mr. Lally?
May we approach?
Sure.
No! Ah. Whoa. Oh, he's animated talking, isn't he? He was very animated. Ricky Watson, thank you so much. Debbie Long gifted a membership. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you. I hope they don't have any more witnesses. I need a nap. I'm not working anymore tonight. As soon as we finish this, I'm shutting down and taking a nap. Taking a nap. Have they run out of firefighters? I mean, at this point, they've called all of, you know, everybody who's ever been an EMT or firefighter in the whole town of Canton.
Does it make sense that rather than starting with another witness, figure it's a Friday afternoon, it's been a long week for you all, we'll excuse you at this point. So please do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or investigation into this case. If you happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case, disregard it and let us know. And have a great weekend. Monday will be a full day. We'll see you first thing Monday night.
Disregard it. If you see something, just disregard it. I love that accent. Yes. Look at Bev granting my nap request. I need it. I only slept like 2 hours. Yeah, they just went down and called every single person on Canton Fire Department. All of them.
May be seated.
I think there's an exhibit in the witness stand. All right, because I've decided that it makes more sense to do exhibits the old-fashioned way because it's simply not working out.
Wait! What are you thinking? Hey! I was rude. So rude. What the...
And 200s. So what I would like to do is take all of these, and I know Madam Court Reporter has been great about sticking around all late during the week to pre-mark things. This is more important to me that we get the record straight from this point. I would prefer the jurors to have the exhibits in order and not have numbers 200 and 300 in where they should be 15 and 16. So what I would like you to all do is take a look at the exhibits that have actually been introduced. Their prior numbers, if you have referred to them by their prior numbers, I will permit you for the rest of the trial to say previously referred to as 308, but now exhibit 15 until you feel you don't need to do that anymore. So it means things are going to have to be renumbered. So, Madam Court Reporter, was there anything else we needed to discuss on this? Is there anything else you need from the lawyers?
The exhibit formerly known as Prince.
Okay. So, I don't want to use your name. You've got a list of everything, and Mr. McDermott's got a list of everything that's been introduced. Do you need me to do this, or is this something you can all do with Madam Court Reporter? And I want to come out and make sure it's right. All right, so why don't you all take 10 minutes to see if you can work this through. I'll come out at the end of 10 minutes, see what you have, and we'll make sure the record's straight. Does that make sense to everybody?
It does. The only thing that I would ask to add to that, Your Honor, is in conformity with the court's ruling as far as redaction to the run sheets and the run reports. I'm not sure if they've been stickered or not, but there are medical records with regard to both the victim and the defendant that would be in there, and I would ask for them to either be marked for identification or taken out at this point. Okay. Ms. McLaughlin indicates they haven't been marked yet, so I would just ask to sort of retrieve.
All right, so that's sort of the second point. I assume there are many pages of medical records, and one of the things I told you this morning is if records are going to be introduced subject to redactions, those redactions have to be done before they're introduced. It's going to take some time, so you have to be, if you're not in agreement, then you need to tell me what you're not in agreement over, and I'll have to decide it, but they need to be redacted beforehand, just because this is a long trial. I don't want it to take any longer than it necessarily has to be, and we have to make sure all of the exhibits are in order, especially if they do end up numbering in the hundreds. So, all right, so you factor that into your schedule. We've got many days that we won't be in session. It seems like a good use of council's time to redact records and talk. If you need additional time and we need to cut into the evidence, I'd prefer not to, but I need to know. All right. So I have received from the Commonwealth all of the videos that I requested. I received a flash drive today. When can I get the videos? I thought I was clear yesterday. Apparently I wasn't. So when can I get all of the videos that the defendants intend to introduce? I had hoped to look at them over the weekend.
I'm gonna binge watch the videos like people binge watch Netflix.
It's not a matter of getting them onto a flash drive. That's quick. It's just a matter of getting them to the court. So I would invite the court to direct us how, if you want to use the weekend, let us know. We work on Saturdays and Sundays.
So you can't do it today? You can't do it before you leave? I don't think your IT person's here, right?
I might
Oh,
be able to.
if you can do it before you leave, if he can just download it onto a flash drive, that would be great. Do you want to go talk to him and see how long?
You might be able to do that.
We may be able to do that.
Why don't you talk to him?
Yes. Yes.
All right.
We won't leave until we give them to you.
That would be great. And Ms. Gianetti, yesterday you did say that you'd also give me some idea on why you think they're coming in.
Sure.
Okay, so if you have that, that would be great.
Yeah.
All right.
I just want to make sure I'm very clear about what the court would like. We provided the double videos, the ones that we had put the good and Seraph cameras together. The court wants every single video that we intend to produce
Yes.
for the rest of trial.
Yes.
Okay, understood.
All right, and that's what I requested from both of you. I received, Ms. Gilman, tell me if I'm wrong, but Mr. McDermott handed me a flash drive today that said this was all the Commonwealth's video exhibits. Yes.
And that was after we met this morning, correct? Yes. Okay.
All right, so that'd be great. I just, I want to know what's on them. I was surprised yesterday, and I
Understood.
shouldn't be surprised.
Understood.
All right, so I'll come out after you remark the exhibits. Do you need a break before then, Madam Court Reporter? Mr. McDermott? All right, thanks.
Court, all rise, please.
What was she surprised about yesterday? What was there to be surprised about yesterday? She doesn't want to be surprised. She is running this. Like she wants to, she is not there to oversee the courtroom. She wouldn't even let him speak until he came over and told her what he was going to say to put on the record. Is that even like allowed? I don't get it. I'm blown away. I don't get it. I don't know. I don't get it. Marine Malls with our official stats for the day. 4 witnesses, 14 sidebars, 24 objections, if annies, 61. So 61, that makes our running total for on our lally tally 301. We are at 301. Hold on, I gotta screenshot it. Let me see. I love this. It's so funny. Sidebars. Sidebars. Ah, what is this life? I love our stats. It's so funny. 61, if any's. 7 size. 26, I don't recall. 43 lip smacks. 43 lip smacks. 1 voir dire, and Bev twirling twice. Look at her go. Look at her go. Bless it. What a crazy, crazy week. What did actually, no, I'm not going to look it up. I'm too busy. Can you add sort of to the tally? Oh my gosh, so many sort ofs. He says sort of so much. So much. That and the what if any. Who if anyone. It just gets a little old, you know? Oh my gosh. She calls sidebars before her hubby can speak. That's hilarious. Oh my gosh. So what y'all think about week 1? Is it really only week 1? Does it feel like this has been the longest week of your life? And this is only day 4 of the trial. It is only day 4. Goodness gracious alive. We got a long way to go. I'm gonna have to get like an IV of caffeine going over here. Or maybe I'll just start to get some more sleep. That could probably help too. All right, so Monday. Oh my gosh, yes, Mama Smith. Yes, he said, and who, if anyone, was driving the ambulance? Excuse me, sir. Look, Lucy's having a dream. Lucy's like, I'm driving the ambulance. Look at her little legs. She's chasing something. Look at her little legs. Her little legs are running. Who, if anyone, was driving the ambulance? Is this going on while we are at CrimeCon? Yes. So I will be doing Friday's stream from CrimeCon. I'm going to have to miss the Thursday and Monday stream Monday CrimeCon will be over, but I'll be doing it from Nashville. I'm staying an extra couple days to see my family. But Gailey May 93, happy 1 year anniversary. She's snoring. You can't hear it because now the air came on, but she's snoring. Yeah, it'll be going on. Actually, so I'll miss that Thursday because I'll be driving there. And then, but it's a half day. at least. The 2 days that I'm going to be missing streaming are going to be half days. So we can speed trial them the following day. But yeah, I'm going to be at CrimeCon Friday. I don't know. I'm going to have to figure it out. It's also going to depend on, there's so much going on Friday and that I'm going to have to be at. I don't know. We'll play it by ear. I'm going to at least stream part of it Friday. Depends on the CrimeCon schedule and stuff. So we'll figure it out. If not, then we can speed trial more of it when it's all over. Not when it's all over, but when CrimeCon is all over, I mean. Why is she confusing everything? Everything. Yes, I am going to CrimeCon. Kaylee May, 1 whole year. 1 whole year. What's the date of my Boston interview? A week from today. I'll be on NBC Boston at 7 p.m. Friday. That's the plan. All right, y'all. I am beyond exhausted. I am going to take a nap. Because can we hear the song the 80s made for the mods? The 80s made a song for the mods? Yeah. Let me get back in my email. I don't have it in my email. Where? Okay. Oh, here
We
it is.
are the mods, we are the bouncers. Step to our creators, we toss you out like Amber Heard. Don't come around where we got Matthew Harris, lost Samantha Terry. We got OHIO, 6-volt bus. Watch out, Thomas brings the thunder, Sharon McDonald. Don't mess around her, but from Cachetta to Adam to Ashley. We got 13th Mod, Cena, Holly, Mac City, Kitty, True Crime, Ranch, Dallas, born, Boston bred. We'll toss you out like the Green Monster at the Big Bambino. You get no objections like there will proof. Sit your butt down, class is now in session. We are the mods, boy, we got our own song. What's up? Hi, mom, it is our way or the highway. Moms, drop the mic, slam dunk, boy, you just got server. Let's roll, mods.
Look, Lucy looked like she was dancing for a minute. Oh, that's good. Good job, 80s. Looks like Lucy's doing her head. Good job. Not you. I was talking to 80s, not you. That's so funny. Good job. Good job. All right, y'all. I am going to bed. Thank you for hanging out. I will see y'all on Monday. If you have not listened to the latest podcast episode, make sure you listen to that. It's out. I will see y'all bright and early on Monday, right? Yeah, Monday. If I wake up by then. All right. I appreciate y'all. I will see you on Monday.
I gotta go. I can't stick around here forever.
It was wonderful. Everybody behaved. Everybody's always so nice to me.
Just love your channel, and
Goodbye. Now, how the heck do I get out of here?